Have you ever seen something that looks absolutely perfect on the outside, but you just get this feeling that it's hollow? Well, we're about to dive into a really powerful idea from the amazing physicist Richard Feynman that gets right to the heart of that feeling. He had a great name for it, cargo cult science.
So where does that strange name come from? It all starts back in World War II, on these remote islands in the Pacific. Something really unusual happened there. Something that ended up becoming this perfect metaphor for a mistake we all make way more often than we think.
All right, so let's get into the story of the cargo. Okay, so picture this. During the war, Allied forces show up on these islands and build entire airstrips right in the middle of the jungle. And then, out of the sky, these giant metal birds appear, bringing things the islanders had never seen before. Canned food, medicine, tools, you name it. To them, it was like magic from the heavens. They called all of it cargo. But then, just as quickly as it started, the war ended. The soldiers packed up and left. The planes vanished, and the cargo stopped coming.
Now, wanting the cargo to come back, the islanders did something that, from their point of view, made perfect sense. They copied exactly what they had seen. I mean, they cleared their own runways in the jungle, they built control towers out of bamboo, they even carved fake headphones out of wood and sat in the towers waiting. They lit fires along the runway just like they'd seen. They had the form down perfectly, but the planes never came. They were missing the real reason the planes landed in the first place.
Now that story might just sound like a cool historical oddity, but here's where it gets interesting. It's actually a perfect mirror for something that happens all the time in a very different world, the world of science. And this is where Richard Feynman comes in. In this now famous speech from 1974, he used this story as this incredible analogy. He looked around at his own field of science and saw people doing all the things that looked like science. They were running experiments, publishing papers, but they were missing the most important ingredient.
And that's what he called cargo cult science. It's any research that has all the bells and whistles of the real thing. It's got the lab coats, the complicated charts, the super technical language, but it's missing what Feynman called a ruthless commitment to not fooling yourself. It's all about looking right, not about being right.
So let's break that down. On one side, you have the form. That's the checklist, right? You have a hypothesis, you collect some data, you run the numbers, you publish a paper. But the substance, well, that's something much deeper. It's not a procedure, it's an ethic. It's this kind of radical honesty where your main goal is to try and prove yourself wrong. That, right there, is the engine of all real scientific discovery.
And look, this isn't just some philosophical thing to debate. It has huge real-world consequences. So the big question is, how do you actually spot this kind of bad science out in the wild?
Well, let's take what's called the replication crisis in psychology. Back in 2015, a huge group of researchers decided to redo 100 published studies to see if they got the same result. Now, how many of those 100 studies do you think they could actually successfully replicate? The result was genuinely shocking, fewer than half.
Yeah, that's why they call it a crisis. I mean, if a finding can't be reproduced, what does it even mean? It's a massive red flag, and it points to a system that too often rewards the form of science, getting your name on a paper, over the substance of getting it right.
So what are the warning signs you should look for? Well, here are a few big ones. Tiny sample sizes that really can't prove much of anything. Weird statistical tricks, like something called p-hacking, which is basically torturing the data until it confesses. Or only reporting the results that worked and hiding the ones that didn't. And a classic one is data dredging. That's when you test 100 different things just hoping something, anything, looks interesting. It's the reason why one year coffee is a superfood and the next year it's terrible for you. A lot of the time, this isn't even about fraud. It's about the intense pressure to publish something exciting.
Okay, so if the problem is basically imitating real science, what's the solution? How do we build the planes that actually fly? For Feynman, it was all about developing what he called the unfooled mind.
It really all boils down to this one central idea. This is Feynman's first principle, and it's so important. He said you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Just think about that for a second. Our own hopes, our own biases, they are the biggest obstacle to seeing things clearly.
And he gave a pretty practical guide for what this kind of integrity looks like. First, you have to report all of your results, especially the ones that make your idea look weaker. You have to lay out your methods so clearly that your biggest critic can try to prove you wrong. You have to be your own toughest opponent and actively try to find the flaws in your own thinking. This isn't just, a nice idea. It's the absolute core of what makes science, well, science. This is the substance.
So let's bring this all home. This idea isn't just for scientists in labs. We all do this. We all have theories about our work, our health, our relationships, and we are all the easiest person to fool. So the question I want to leave you with is this: how do we get better at catching our own self-deception? In what parts of your life are you just going through the motions, hoping the cargo will land?